2 weeks ago, I posted a can of La Colombe s'mores iced latte on my Instagram story. I was told that I support the rape and torture of female cows and therefore shouldn't speak on any social justice issues, and that I am a hypocrite and that my morals are inconsistent. I take no issue with vegans. I take issue with the ones who think it's appropriate to shame people for what they consume when there is no human way to ethically consume anything under capitalism.
Okay, so I'm just going to try to keep this civil and share my objections. When people respond to veganism saying there's no ethical consumption under capitalism, how are we supposed to interpret this? Does this mean that everything goes, everything is equally bad? If my neighbor started breeding and killing dogs for meat and I financially supported that, and my financial support incentivized him to breed more dogs who will suffer and die for hamburgers, just like in animal agriculture, can I just say, oh, well, there's no ethical consumption under capitalism to shut down criticism? Would she not criticize me? I mean, I hope she would. And I'm guessing people who use this line do encourage buying from businesses that practice fair trade, which implies there is a spectrum of harm here. And if we accept this, it's pretty clear that animal agriculture is at the extreme end of the spectrum. It literally involves breeding, forcibly inseminating, exploiting, and killing billions of sentient beings, often in horrible conditions. And when you factor in fish, there's trillions of beings being killed. She also made this point in her stories about bad crop labor, which is pretty similar to when people point out that vegans support sweatshops. So I'll address this, but first let's be clear that pointing out hypocrisy in somebody who is criticizing you is just a tu quo qui fallacy. You are not addressing their criticism. Secondly, you can acknowledge that workers that work in crop fields or sweatshops have less than ideal conditions and that we should improve them, while also understanding that buying animal products is not truly analogous to buying from businesses with these practices. Here's the key difference. Buying animal products directly funds the breeding, use, and killing of sentient beings. With crops or buying from sweatshops, even if the labor conditions are bad, you're not creating sentient victims for the purpose of using and killing them. And often, those jobs, while far from ideal, are still the best or only options for those workers. That doesn't mean vegans don't care about these issues. We absolutely should work to improve them. But the harms just are not analogous. In other words, there are more reasons to believe that buying animal products increases this utility than buying crops, since the former guarantees the breeding and killing of sentient beings, while the latter may involve labor that, although unfair, can still represent the best or only option for survival for those workers. Losing this job could actually result in more suffering. I'm also curious, does breeding, exploiting, and killing animals suddenly become ethical under a socialist system or something that's not capitalist? How exactly? What vegans take issue with would still be happening, the breeding, exploiting, and killing of animals for food. I'd be curious to know, in her view, what is the morally relevant difference between humans and animals such that it's ethical to farm animals in a non-capitalist system but not humans? She also asks about ethical butchers in her caption. So I'm curious if she'd be okay with somebody raising dogs nicely, only to kill them at a fraction of their lifespan so she can have a cheeseburger. If it's not ethical, then what's the morally relevant difference between dogs and cows such that it's ethical to raise one for a hamburger and not the other, as long as you raise them nicely?
Feminism is about bodily autonomy, choice, and justice, not moral elitism over food.
As for the people criticizing her about being a feminist while supporting dairy, I mean, sure, you can be a feminist solely for human beings, but when you say that feminism is about bodily autonomy, choice, and justice, it should be mentioned that in animal agriculture, animals are literally stripped of their bodily autonomy and they're given no choice, and it's clearly an injustice. So the question really becomes, why is it ethical to strip animals of all of these things for a cheeseburger, but not human beings? What is the morally relevant difference? I can keep going. I mean, she even defended the carnivore diet in her caption. She even said in a comment, can we revisit this topic after we ensure that human beings are okay? As if you can't just grab the oat or soy milk over cow's milk while also advocating for human rights. You can advocate for two things at once. I'll end this by saying, here's the issue that vegans, especially left-leaning vegans, have with left-leaning non-vegans. You claim to stand up for the oppressed and marginalized groups while actively supporting the oppression of the most oppressed group on the planet, animals. They are so oppressed that you even have somebody like her, who claims to stand up for the oppressed, reducing criticism of her to, oh, you're just shaming me for my food choices and what I consume. It's who you consume. These are individual sentient beings we're talking about. This is how victimized animals are in modern society. I hope you give this a second thought.